All right, we are waiting on the announcement, the official confirmation for February 22nd, and I would imagine that the press conference is. Look, I don't have any inside information, but I would imagine if we're going to get a press conference or an announcement, I know Turkey Al Sheikh has actually teased the announcement or a form of announcement may come in the next 2 days. That was yesterday, actually. In fact, I think he actually responded to a tweet, if I'm not mistaken, where someone was asking him about this February 22nd card. I'll see if I can actually really quickly just get it here. It says here, Peterbiev and Bivol shouldn't sign if they aren't in the main event. This is ridiculous. This is someone who just left a tweet. Turkey Al Sheikh responded to, wait and see, do not believe anything until I announce. I hope to be ready in 2 days, and I hope the fans like it. It will be a big surprise. Each fight can be easy main card. The fans in my heart. Ooh. Well, this reported card, big card that we're hearing about February 22nd, if it's what we're led to believe, then I don't disagree with Turkey Al Sheikh that every fight there is a main event level fight. Dubois versus Parker, potentially main event, no questions asked. We've already had Bivol Beterbiev main event, no questions asked. Hamza Shiraz Adames. It's not a pay-per-view main event, but it's certainly a main event on a Queensberry show. I mean, Hamza Shiraz on standard Queensberry is a main eventer. There's no ifs or buts. Kabayel Zhang, main event on a Queensberry show, no questions asked. What was the other fight? I really should have had them all in front of me here. And I don't actually have them in front of me now. There was another fight as well, and forgive me, but it's completely gone out of my head now. But needless to say, the card that's being rumored anyway, it's crazy. It was Boots versus Ortiz. It came to me just there. I mean, Boots Ortiz. Some people are saying it's going to be 147. Others are saying it's going to be 154. You would think that they would do it at 154 pounds, considering the fact that Virgil Ortiz, it's not just the fact that Boots Ennis is tight at the weight. I mean, Virgil Ortiz has literally, thank God he didn't, but, I was going to say killing himself, but he is quite literally killing himself to make 147. He's had so many issues making that weight. It's not even funny. So you would think that just from a pure fighter's safety perspective, they would do it at 154. But I think that card is absolutely, that is, the Day of Reckoning card. That was a very special card, wasn't it? Because we had our first taste of Saudi. I'd say not our first taste, that's a lie, because we'd seen some cards over there in Saudi Arabia prior to that. The final of the World Boxing Super Series, the super middleweight, was in Saudi Arabia. I think that was in Jeddah. George Groves and Callum Smith headlined. The only thing that was noticeable about the undercard was Chris Eubank Jr. fighting the guy, what's his name, JJ McDonough, him quitting in the fight, and then Eubank Jr. not being best pleased, rightly so, and then him, JJ McDonough, offering to fight again. Then immediately after having a scraper, that was the only thing that was memorable about that. Then they did. No, they did. I'm trying to think of it in sequential order. They did Amir Khan, Billy Dib. Yeah, really, that fight really did happen. And they had an ancient Sam Peter against Hughie Fury. They had Prince Patel lose, which was a real fun fight, I gotta say. That was at bantamweight. He's fighting at welterweight now, apparently, according to rumours. That was the next one. So the Saudi shows were they were being paid well even then. Amir Khan was making some good money. Apparently, he made more fighting Billy Dib, career lightweight, in Saudi Arabia than he did for the Canelo fight. Then the big one was Joshua versus Andy Ruiz 2. That was the first real major show we had in Saudi. Nothing happened in 2020, obviously. Nothing happened in 21. They did... No, I don't think it didn't happen in 21. They did the Usyk fight, the rematch, in Saudi Arabia. And this is kind of when, obviously, they did Jake Paul, Tommy Fury in Saudi Arabia. But then we started, this was when it really started taking shape. The first kind of main show we had with Skill Challenge was the Fury and Ngannou show. And that was not one of their strongest cards, but it had so many heavyweights on it. Not in 50-50 fights. A lot of them were mismatches. On paper, Fabio Wadley versus Adelaide, on paper, should have been a 50-50. It wasn't. We all thought it would have been, or the majority of us did anyway. And, that was kind of their first involvement. And then that led to the Day of Reckoning, where, we thought that a card like that, I certainly did at one stage, was impossible. It was proven wrong. And they've gone from strength to strength. Have some of them been as strong? No. But I would say, and I would argue, that this is the strongest Saudi card we've ever seen, if it's what the rumours are suggesting. There's talk that maybe Shakur Stevenson could be on there against things like Floyd Schofield, so it could be even bigger. But we'll wait and see what Turki Al Sheikh has to say on this. We have at times heard rumours about fights that are going to take place on respective shows, and some of them, not all of them, some of them haven't come to fruition, some have. We've heard some names get mentioned, and not even that they haven't fought this person, some of them haven't even featured on the show. So we don't know just yet, but we're hearing on the grapevine this is going to be a big show. So I'm looking forward to seeing the final announcement. If it is as they're reporting what I just said there, a lot of people are asking the question, is this the greatest boxing card of all time? It's certainly, in terms of the Saudis, this would be the best show I've seen. Now, the Saudis have set a very high standard, even on some of the cards that are not as good as, say, the Day of Reckoning on paper anyway. They're still miles better than pay-per-views we've seen over the years. There's no question about that. Is this as good as some of the old... this is not me... As a person, this person is a horrendous human being. I mean, he really is awful. I mean, you can say what you want about Frank Warren, you can say what you want about Bob Arum, Eddie Hearn, some of these promoters. This guy is something else, and that, of course, is Don King. Now, if you look at him in the 90s, when he was kind of the main guy, he pretty much was the main guy. There was others, there was the Duvis, there was Bob Arum, etc. But you look at some of these events he was putting on, and if you go on BoxRec, it'll show you. And anytime you see a big arena like the MGM, I mean, some of these events he was putting on there, and a lot of them had Mike Tyson on it, of course. I mean, Mike Tyson against Peter McNeil. On this card alone, you have Terry Norris against Luis Santana. You have Bruce Seldon against Joe Hip. All right. You have Lamar Murphy versus Miguel Angel Gonzalez. And you have Quincy Taylor against Julian Jackson. World title fight. Terry Norris was a world title fight. Yeah, world title fight. And that was obviously Mike Tyson's comeback. So you have three world title fights on that card with good names. He obviously did Wembley Stadium. I think that would have been Oliver McCall, Frank Bruno. Nigel Benn was on there. Virgil Hill, former light heavyweight champion. Not Virgil Hunter, Virgil Hill. Virgil Hill was he was the guy Roy Jones knocked out with a body shot. And it looked really flipping painful. Yeah, 12 rounder. I think he was WBA champion. So that might have been a world title fight, because BoxRec are not recognising the WBA for whatever insane reason. That's a real good card too. I mean, I know some people would look and be like, who are these? At the these would have been the equivalent of, essentially, no disrespect, the Hamza Shearises of the world. And I say that not to be disrespectful, because, Virgil Hill was a very, very good fighter. And these are some of the cards. I'll get the one that most people talk about when it comes to Don King cards. November the 9th, 1996. This was... thought someone was beeping out there. This was obviously Mike Tyson Holyfield 1. Now, that pay-per-view did very well. Did it do 1 million buys? Tyson Holyfield 1. It had. Now, if you're a fan of heavyweights and you want to see the 90s heavyweight division in action, and some of the things that went on in the 90s heavyweight division in terms of letting fights go on, you would watch some of these fights. Finito Lopez, undefeated, mind you, at 105 pounds, world title fight. You have other world title fights on there as well. He had Francois Botha versus Michael Moore. That was for the IBF. That was for the vacant title, because I think Foreman won it. Or did he vacate the WBA? Well, I can't remember what order he vacated them in. That was for a vacant IBF title. Now, Michael Moore beat Francois Botha, 12th round TKO. It was, if you've ever seen that fight, if you've ever actually seen this fight, Francois Botha took a tremendous beating. I mean, he really did take a hellacious beating in this fight. If this fight had happened today, they would have stopped it mid-rounds, most likely. took a tremendous beating. Henry Akinwande defended his WBO world title as well, beat Alexander Zokin. I think that was the fight where Zokin's nose was busted and it was like gushing blood. So you've seen some pretty, I mean, there's 1, 2, 3, 4 world title fights that I know of. Was there any more? I don't think so. But these Don King shows back in the day, they were, honestly, and Don King, not a good person, but he put on some serious shows. I mean, he had most of the guys in boxing. And honestly, it was crazy when you look at the level of fights he's putting on those undercards. And that card in particular, the Tyson Holyfield one. I mean, Tyson Holyfield sold in general. And look at the undercard. I would say that they are some of the best cards you'll ever see in boxing. The Saudis are looking to overstep them. And I think they're on the right track. Is this the greatest card I've ever seen? Certainly since I've been a hardcore fan in this kind of, watching boxing religiously and not looking back on the past and stuff like that. Yeah, if it's what it's reported, yeah, I could easily say that this probably is the best card I've seen. Genuinely, probably is. One of my favourite cards, and one of the cards I always look back on very fondly, was the Dylan White Joseph Parker card. I look back on that card very fondly. That's one of my favourite cards, but that pales into insignificance compared to some of these Don King shows and compared to what the Saudis are looking to do in February. Is it the greatest? I'm not going to jump the gun and say it's necessarily that. If it's what is being reported, it's definitely up there. I'm not going to say it's the greatest, but it is certainly up there. It really, truly is. And I think that the fact this is happening very early in 2025, it puts us in a real good stead for the rest of the year. I think next year, this year has been good. It's not been perfect. It's had its moments. I think the domestic scene in the UK has suffered quite badly. Certainly Eddie Hearn has done very little with the UK scene. Ben Shalom is doing more quality over quantity, which is not a bad thing, because some of those shows he put on last year were abysmal. They were awful. Frank Warren is the kind of guy who's really doing the best of both. He's doing great shows over there with the Saudis, and he's also doing brilliant shows in the UK. So Frank Warren is kind of, I want to say he is the gold standard now at this minute. I never thought I'd be saying that about Frank Warren, believe me, in terms of what he's doing with regards to his UK domestic shows and the international scene with the Saudis. But I think that next year, Eddie Hearn and Ben Shalom are going to focus on not just the Saudis and the internationals, they're going to focus on the UK scene, which is going to make next year a particularly interesting year, I think. But I'm going a bit off topic here. Let me know your thoughts. Is this the greatest boxing show? Certainly since you've become a fan of boxing. If you're fairly recent, then I would imagine it would be. But as a whole, let me know. Hope you enjoyed it. Smash the like button if you could. Subscribe if you haven't already. And until next time, people, peace.